Mark Sankarsingh is responsible for all aspects of the HR technology agenda at PepsiCo. I met him on a bus actually headed to a vendor's party at the recent HR Tech conference in Vegas. We had a nice chat there on the bus, and so I wanted to invite him on the show and talk tech. So, Mark, welcome. It's good to see you again, my friend.
Good to be here, Chris, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to our discussion.
Excellent. So, let's talk about HR Tech first. What did you see at the show? What caught your eye? Give us some feedback there.
Yeah, so I attended last year, and the very first thing that caught my eye was how many more vendors there were in HR Tech this year. It's just exploded, and every vendor is an AI vendor, right? So, and they're all so niche, right? They're all AI agentic. They're saying all the right buzzwords: agentic AI and responsible AI, ROI, human centricity, and it's very interesting because it just felt very homogenous to me,
Yeah.
and not a whole lot of differentiation. So that was one thing that stood out. The other thing was it almost seems somewhat counterintuitive from my point of view. And what I mean by that is, in a sense, since ChatGPT launched in the fall of 22, the big HR tech providers, so let's say the big three of Oracle and Success Factors and Workday, I mean, you can throw some others in there. They've really accelerated their product roadmap in a major way, and they're embedding as much as they can AI into their core product, into the offerings. Some doing it organically, some by acquisition, but they're all off to the races, and they're all trying to be first to market, outdo each other, which is great for us because we benefit from that. So as I think about, and I'm a huge proponent of the fully integrated suite as much as possible, end to end. So when I see these bolt-ons, which is what ultimately they would be, and how do you measure that ROI? How do you measure the value of what that actually brings to your suite versus what's been happening over the past 3 years, right? Since ChatGPT. So, I mean, some good stuff. I did see some really interesting things, but yeah, it was just a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
How are you guys at Pepsi there thinking about AI and the hiring process? I mean, have you, had meetings on this? Are you like thinking about ways to leverage this? Give me some sense on how you're going about, implementing some of this stuff.
Yes, very carefully. So, especially in the hiring process, where there is probably the most opportunity for bias and for where you need to apply responsible AI very carefully. So yes, we are looking at it obviously from attraction all the way to requisitions and sourcing and offer and onboarding. And we have quite a bit of automation, maybe AI automation built in as well. But we're very careful that everything is actually decisions and dispositions are being done by people, by humans, right?
Yeah.
So it's what you'd expect. We have a chat bot on our careers website. So there's that sort of more narrow Gen AI where it's looking at you say, hey, I'm looking for this type of job in New York. Here's my salary range, and it'll do the matching, and it'll bring you back some results. Also, just you can upload your resume, and again, it'll match based on your skills, experiences, preferences. It'll bring you back matches in terms of what we have. So all that's good, but that's more kind of narrow. It's natural language processing, some machine learning in there. Similarly, we have candidates in our CRM, so our recruiters use that quite often to match up with new jobs that come up and the candidates that we keep warm. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good. We recently launched a an interview framework assistant is what we're calling it. And basically it's and I've used it and it's actually pretty cool. I've actually not in a demo situation, but in a live situation.
Have you
Right.
applied to your own job and interviewed it? Yeah, yeah, okay.
Not that one, but it was actually someone that we were hiring or interviewing, and that was part of the interview panel, and it
Hmm.
was pretty cool. So it's basically it's recording the interview, and we disclose it. They have to agree to it, but it's recording the interview. It's taking notes. It's identifying highlights, maybe strengths, opportunities, And in a way, it's really cool to that, but it's not doing any dispositioning, but it's providing that feedback to the interviewer and for anyone else on the interview panel, and the hiring manager can look at it and it summarizes it just as additional data inputs, which is really cool because that is the opposite of bias. It really looks at it objectively and it takes away any personal biases you may have in terms of you conducting that interview. So stuff like that we're looking at, but ultimately in the hiring process, humans make the decision.
Yeah. Give us a sense of what you hire for there at PepsiCo. It must run the gamut, I would assume, from blue collar to professional, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we're about 300,000 employees, two-thirds of which are frontline associates, right? So you think supply chain and go to market. So in manufacturing plants, machine workers,
Hmm.
people that have know how to use a fryer, packagers, in the warehouse. Forklift drivers are huge, as you can imagine, and as they move things around and load the trucks. And then you have our sales workforce, our drivers, our merchandisers, that are driving the big trucks, the small trucks, and delivering to stores. So that covers the gamut of sort of the front line. Two-thirds, pretty competitive in terms of the supply that's out there. There's
Hmm.
high demand for those type of workers. And then just like any other company in terms of the white collar, the different functions that we have in IT and HR and legal, um, and strategy, but much smaller, and not as competitive as what we see with the front line nowadays. So
Yeah.
that's sort of the landscape.
Gotcha. Now, for the frontline workers, do you have a different apply process for them? Do you use any different kind of tech there? I think you're on Avature and ADP as sort of your core HCM systems. Is that correct?
Correct. So currently we use iCIMS for our let's call it knowledge workers or non-hourly workers. And then outside of the US as well, we use iCIMS for frontline.
Gotcha.
In the US, it's a different story. That's where we have the biggest volume. And we do have currently two separate ATSs managed by RPOs. So yes, we do have one. We use Avature in our foods and ADP for our beverages. And so we're looking to potentially consolidate that into one, high volume next gen AI enabled platform for the US.
Yeah. What are some of your core must haves for that next generation, do you
Yeah,
think?
it's got to be quick. The candidate experience is, again, like I said earlier, this has become a very competitive space. So the candidate experience is first and foremost text to engage, and that's sort of quick. You could be standing online to get a hamburger, and by the
Yep.
time you reach, hey, you have a job or you have an interview, right? That type of sort of quick response, enabled by AI is what we're looking for. User friendly, obviously mobile first, etc.
Yep. Okay. What else is part of your HR tech stack? Any other notable vendors in there?
Yeah, I mean, so we are a success factors shop. Okay. So core HR and learning, talent management, succession planning, time off. We have some other components in there as well. We're not. Like I said earlier, I'm a big proponent of the fully integrated suite. We're not quite there, but we might be heading there. Like I mentioned, iCIMS, right, is sort of a separate integration with our core HCM for our ATS. But when you think about what's happening in the industry, what I mentioned earlier in terms of the product roadmap accelerating, but also success factors acquiring smart recruiters, for example, right? At that event you just mentioned, I had a great discussion both with Rebecca Carr, who is the CEO of Smart Recruiters, and Dan Beck, president of success factors, to understand, hey, what's your strategy? Where is this going? So yeah, this thing is moving so quickly and so fast, and everyone is competing. Who knows what will happen in 2 to 3 years? But so that's one big ticket item. That's not the ATS. That's not currently part of our tech stack or integrated tech stack. And then the other big one I would say is compensation. And I'm not sure that we'll ever get there. At PEP, we're pretty complex because of our frontline population. We have a
Mhm.
huge, we have a lot of programs, incentive comp programs, in terms of how we incentivize the front line, and they're very complex. And so I haven't seen, and we benchmark this quite often. I haven't seen the ability for the bigger HCMs to compete with what we have today, or meet the requirements. So that'll probably stay separate for now. But there are definitely other components that will likely be fit for purpose in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Is the whole TA team there centralized, or is it kind of decentralized from a organizational standpoint?
So centralized insofar as they all roll up to the head of TA from a strategy and design standpoint, or the head of TA ops from an execution delivery service delivery standpoint. So it's centralized in that fashion, but obviously they're spread across the world, the
Yeah.
globe. Yeah.
Let's talk about jobs here for a second, Mark. How much sort of daily activity tracking with the applications, things like that? Can you give us a sense of, are you seeing just an influx of resumes now? I'm hearing a lot now from vendors, a lot of resume, a ChatGPT resume lookalikes out there. Give me a sense of what you're seeing on that end.
You know, because we are so heavy on frontline, there's probably a lot less opportunity on that AI job seeker effect there, right? So there's probably a little bit more on the knowledge worker side. I haven't heard of any major issues, which is not to say there aren't any. I'm
Yeah,
sure there has to be. Everybody's using it, but it hasn't risen to the, hey, we have an epidemic here, or we have a real issue that we now need to counter with some technology. So I haven't seen that. I haven't
yeah,
heard that, but it's a great question, and it's something I'm speaking anecdotally here, but it's something I will kind of take a pulse on and check in with the TA team to see what, if anything, they're seeing, and if they're seeing an uptick, an increase in that as well.
yeah. You must get a ton. Your resume database must be huge at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you guys mine that? Are you actively in there trying to, leverage that data? You already pay for those clicks and those candidates,
we do, and that's why our CRM is so critical, because
Is that
once
Aperture?
um, no, so our CRM right now so Avature is interesting. Avature is a CRM, right?
Yeah.
But it's also an ATS, right? So the Avature I mentioned before is used specifically as the ATS component only for Foods US.
Oh, okay.
But our global CRM is in iCIMS, actually, and it's part and parcel with iCIMS. So yes, we that's a great source for our recruiters when we're looking to source jobs. Absolutely.
Yeah. How big of a tech team do you have as far as managing all this software goes? Give me a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah, so it's I have a tech stack lead or head for each major COE. So there's one for talent acquisition, there's one for total rewards, there's one for learning management, talent management, workforce management, there's one for payroll, right? So that person, he or she, is responsible for managing that tech stack end to end, and all the different solutions that are in it, managing the vendors, upgrades, releases, staying on top of industry trends, and doing any enhancements and so forth.
Yeah. Now you've been in Pepsi, I think about 6 years. I was looking at your
Yeah, I just
LinkedIn.
made 6 years in September.
Nice. And before that, you were at Citibank.
I was Citigroup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you managed HR tech there as well, right?
I did for the most part. When I started at Citigroup a long time ago, you'd appreciate this. My first job was in the private bank, and I had to do a headcount and attrition report for the head of the private bank. So at that time, there was no, I mean, uh, um, the sort of off-the-shelf SaaS products were just sort of, you know, developing,
Hmm.
but not the way it is today, obviously. So my process was and they certainly didn't have it at Citigroup at the time. So my process was getting static Excel spreadsheets of headcount from 32 different countries. I built an Access database, to then ingest that data, and then I was able to spit out some, as of a point in time, headcount and an attrition reporting month over month. So fast
Microsoft
forward,
Access. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, the good old days,
Yeah. Those days.
which was actually very impressive at the time, I have to say. So obviously, you fast forward. So that was 20 years, right? I was at Citigroup. You fast forward, and you get to software as a service. At that time now, PeopleSoft Shop, but just core HR and tons of different bolt-ons. And one of the last things I did before leaving Citigroup and coming to PepsiCo was implementing Workday, right? Which is interesting. And then now having the perspective of leading a success factors HCM shop. So yeah, interesting. I would say, because I get asked this question all the time: what's the difference? Which one is better? Is there a preference? And honestly, I would say six and one, half a dozen. Right? It all depends on. Here's a news flash: the underlying processes. It all
Right.
depends on how you configure the tool, and on what's fit for purpose for your business. So either one works fine, I think.
Yeah. How closely do you work with recruiters and TA managers there? Are you constantly getting feedback from them in terms of what's working, what's not, as far as the tech goes?
Yeah, very very much. So when I mentioned my tech stack head in each of the different COEs, so the way it's structured at Pepsi is that tech stack head is pretty much joined to the hip with the TA operations, so the executional arm, who is then joined to the hip with the actual HR COE doing design and strategy. So they are what's great, tech is so democratized now. They know the space well. They know what tech is available. They go to their industry conferences. They're benchmarking with other companies, and so it's a funnel of ideas that's coming in, which is great, which I love. And then we go through a process of how we assess and then select or not or enhance. We try to influence the product roadmap of our vendors as much as can, co-innovate, co-develop where they allow it, but very much in sync with what they're thinking and how we're enabling and supporting that.
You got any funny, interesting stories about hiring there at Pepsi, candidate or something that happened there?
Um, you know what? I'll give you a story. I'll give you a personal story. How's that?
Okay.
So I can't believe I'm telling you this, Chris. This is funny. So
Breaking news here on
here
RegTech.
I am. It's the summer. It's the summer of 2019. Okay, and I'm in purchase, and I'm interviewing for the role I currently have at PepsiCo. Not with my boss, but one of my peers.
Okay.
And keep in mind, I'm coming from financial services, and so I'm fully suited and tie, right? Thank goodness it wasn't a three-piece suit. Um, and um, and so I'm in a conference room. It's like probably one of the hottest days of the summer too. And my future peer, comes in, and he opens the door and he stops dead in his tracks when he sees me. Right? Of course, he's wearing jean sneakers and a t-shirt. That wasn't the issue. The issue was I had a non-PepsiCo beverage,
Oh.
water, sitting while I'm desperately trying to hydrate and keep cool. So, so Simon stops dead in his tracks and he goes, Mark, would you like a refreshing Pepsi beverage? And I looked at him and I said, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So he goes away and he comes back with an Aquafina, nice and cool. Of course, the nondescript bottle of water is gone. And so it just, coming from financial services, or at least Citigroup, they didn't really care what you carried in your wallet, right? Or that your mortgage is with Citigroup or with credit card. That's not a thing. At CPG, certainly at PepsiCo, it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Very proud, very much advocating and for the product. You walk the halls of the offices and that's all you see, right? You would never see another product, right? Which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was my first lesson, right? And immediate, but how dumb was I not to have understood that before? So luckily that didn't blow my offer. But yeah, so that's a funny story I'd have.
Great lesson for job seekers out there, Mark. So
Yeah,
dropping the knowledge today. All right.
yeah, exactly.
It's been great talking with you, Mark. My last question basically is, what's your biggest challenge right now in your role there at Pepsi? I mean, it must be I can imagine just the pace of change happening in HR tech right now is just crazy and kind of your head spinning, probably, right? Hmm.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's funny. I go back to HR Tech, and one of the keynotes, the CHRO for GE Health, he said something very interesting. He said, right now where we are, um, nobody knows what they're really doing, and it's a very confusing time. And that really resonated with me. I think that's a little bit to the extreme, but I understood
Yeah.
the point he made, and there's a lot of truth to that. So yes, to your point, the good news is there's a lot of options. There's a lot of uh, the tech is moving very quickly. There are a lot of ways if we make the right assessment and selection to enable us in ways we haven't seen before, make us super productive. The bad news is everything I just said before, because once you make a selection, then there's something else that comes along, right? And we don't want to get into the business of chasing the shiny new toy, right? We have to at some point double down on our tech strategy, our decisions, and stay the course at least for 3 to 5 years. So that's a challenge, right? That's a challenge when new things keep coming up. But I think the roadmap, the strategy we've laid out is the right one, and yeah, I'm excited about what's to come.
Well, stay in touch, Mark. We look forward to seeing where Pepsi goes with their HR tech. And thanks for joining us today here in RegTech.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Pleasure having this discussion with you.
That will do it for this episode of the RegTech podcast. Thanks again to Jobcase and Dahlia for their sponsorship. Be sure to follow myself and RegTech Media on LinkedIn. See every podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And remember, always be recruiting. That's a wrap.